You have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggles, stories, and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. Past episodes of the Authentic Business Adventures program can be found on the podcast link at drawincustomers.com. We are coming to you from the Sun Prairie Community Radio Studios, underwritten by Bank of Sun Prairie. My name is James Cademan, business coach at Draw In Customers Business Coaching, co-owner of Calls on Call Shared Receptionist Services, and author of the Bold Business Book, available on Amazon. Today, we are welcoming / preparing to learn from Megan Boswell and Corinne Neal from the Jills of All Trades. How are you guys doing?
Good.
We're doing great.
Nice.
Thanks for having us today.
That's what I like to hear.
Excited to be here.
So the Jills of All Trades, who wants to go first and just tell us what that is?
I'll jump in. So the Jills of All Trades is an online platform or directory of women consultants.
Okay.
And what they all have in common is that they work for themselves. They come from diverse areas of interest and skills. So they might be professional development specialists or marketing specialists, graphic designers, lawyer, healthcare specialists, some really cool rock star STEM scientists.
Okay.
So their skills are diverse, but what they need and what they want is to get an amplified promotion, and our platform happily and boldly does that for them.
Sure. So what made you guys start this?
Well, it started actually a good few years ago when Megan and I have been friends for many years, but we had never really had many conversations about our work. Actually, we shared children, in common. We met
Not
through
together.
school, not together, but
My son.
our sons were friends and have been have grown up together.
Okay.
But I can't even remember exactly, but we started to have a conversation more related to work. And at the time, I was working freelance and working independently, and Megan had just kind of moved into a consultative role.
Sure.
And so it was our first sort of common place, even though our backgrounds were different, we were suddenly shared this similar work style. And I had mentioned to Megan, oh, do you know so-and-so? She's also doing this, and so-and-so. And we decided we should all get together, that there were all these fabulous women, just even in our neighborhood, that had these rock star careers, really. Sure. But they were working very independently and very off radar. And so we planned an evening, basically, where we all got together and had a few glasses of wine. And in that one evening, there were so many connections made and so many sharing of ideas, helping out one another, that Megan and I really felt strongly like there's something going on here and it's really important. And a lot of us knew one another, or there was at least somebody who knew somebody in that crowd. And yet none of us had really ever shared what it was we were doing with work. And so really that to me was the bubbling in the beginnings of the Jills of All Trades.
Sure.
Yeah, I think what became very clear to us just in that first meetup, that first gathering, was that there was women that were doing very specialized work, and a lot of it was independent work. And we weren't sure at that point, they either weren't comfortable promoting what they were doing, or they weren't confident to do it. And that really was the white space that we started to get excited about, and said, well, if they're not going to do it themselves or can't, well, we'll happily do it. And I think that really was that first white space, is what's the way to best solve that problem? How do independent women professionals get themselves on the map?
So is the idea that the majority of it is a marketing platform, or for this consortium, so to speak, of women consultants? Is that right?
Yeah, I think that is fair to say. After a lot of iterations, and I like your program that does talk about the journey of businesses. But yeah, it's fair to say that right now our main product and our main focus is the promotion, is the marketing. Because that is a service that's very hard to get when you're on your own and you're off radar. And the contingent workforce or gig economy or freelance economy. There's a lot of ways that it's being labeled. But that population is just exploding in numbers for a lot of reasons. We can talk about that, but it's exploding in numbers. And so fragmentation is a real issue. So yeah, it's great that people are jumping in, but you're a grain of sand on this beach that just keeps growing and growing and growing. So we're solving the fragmentation by forming a collective, but then we're also solving the problem of like, how do you get noticed when everyone can pretty much set up shop pretty quickly with a website?
Sure,
But
the barrier to entry is pretty low.
very low
very low.
entry. So how do you send your beacon up and get found and get noticed for the specialties that you have?
Sure.
You don't want to just be a graphic designer. What kind of graphic designer? What's your specialty? Who are your customers? What is your personal passion? And, what are you going to bring to it? How do you get noticed?
Sure. That's fair, because I imagine if you're the best in the world but nobody knows about you, you're not the best in the world from a business point of view.
Yeah. And then taking that sort of, macro view of, okay, fragmenting the gig economy. Well, that's, you need an army of specialists to do that. So we also got excited about, well, who specifically are we specifically qualified to help? And you go where you know, and you help who you know. And so that also became our target to help women.
Nice.
But then as we learned more, our interest was just even validated further by trends.
Oh, nice.
There's more women stepping into the contingent workforce.
Okay.
And I guess we can dig deeper into say why that is. It's not by accident. It is by design.
Sure.
Yeah, we definitely know that for a long time, women have been looking for more flexible work styles. And so this offers an opportunity for them.
Okay.
We also know that even statistically speaking, women are really excellent entrepreneurs. They actually do better than their male counterparts in pretty much all metrics. But they're underfunded and often not promoted to the same levels. So again, it was definitely a group of people who are doing amazing things, but really needed more attention drawn to them. And so that was also a motivation for us to, well, absolutely, why wouldn't we help this group? We also noticed over and over again from that very first meeting that although there seemed to be a reluctance about self-promotion, promoting each other was like, it just sort of felt like the culture, like nobody had any problem saying, have you met my friend Megan, and she's amazing and she does all these things, much more so than what people felt saying about themselves. They were just, they kind of would hold back a little bit more about themselves. And so again, this really just made sense then for the Jills. We know that we're really good at promoting one another, so let's come together and do that in the service of every single one of us.
And capitalize on that dynamic. At the same time when we were forming our concept and our mission, there was also a very defined pulse that we were feeling of the increased voice in women globally.
Okay.
And this was probably in maybe, early 2016 or late 2015, even the very kernels of our mission and our startup. But you could just sort of feel, the spidey senses for us were just cueing in.
Sure.
And that certainly has become a really phenomenal ripple. Women are demanding equity in all sorts of industries and all sorts of topics and applications. Work and wage equity is one of them. If you're a contingent worker, it's a really great way that you're going to find those leadership opportunities that may not exist in traditional corporate settings. So that's another reason why women are kind of jumping into saying, well, I'll just do it myself then. If you can't get a seat at the table, you just, make your own table. Yeah.
Right. That's awesome.
So there's been a lot of cool things happening at the same time at a global scale, and then we're and also at an industry scale that we're colliding. And it seems like it's all clicking.
Sure. Interesting. No, there's definitely a wave happening, and there has to be some ups and downs and challenges in that wave, but I imagine you got a good thing going.
Yeah.
So tell me, you guys, when was this wine meeting?
2015? I feel like I think that original meeting was probably in 2015.
Yeah, probably that, later part of that year, yep.
I don't mean to say it was the only one, but
Right.
no, the one.
Right. And it wasn't just wine.
No.
But,
Sure.
yeah.
No, that's fair.
No.
It was
So
a
you have
catalyst evening, though, I would say.
I think it was. Yeah. It was definitely in 2015. Yep. Because I stepped out of the corporate setting in mid-year of 2014.
Okay.
And then through that year, kind of set up shop as, like Corinne said, as a consultant. And like
Sure.
everyone else, you're like, well, I'll just be a consultant, and that seems easy.
Hang
And
your
I'll set up
shingle
hang my
out,
shingle
right?
and set up a website, and boom. And to some degree, yeah, things went as I planned. But to another huge degree, I was like, no, this is really hard. You have no collaborators. You don't have your IT guy. You don't
Right.
have your fabulous team that you can finish each other's sentences. And so it was really that space where Corinne and I were coming together, as Corinne had mentioned.
Sure.
And Corinne had been in as a contractor for so many years, doing all sorts of cool things. Education and content and curriculum is Corinne's specialty, and working in the Middle East and Canada and Europe, and then of course the States. And so she brought to me a whole different perspective and understanding of how do you do this. So when you're working as a contractor and you're doing your work, but then you're also looking for work at the same time.
Oh, sure.
And then what's the best way to put proposals together? And, and so I was really kind of saying like, hey, show me this other side of what's been under the curtain for so many decades, having hired freelancers, but
Sure.
never had been one.
Sure.
It is a really important, I think, component is that just sharing of the experience because it can be a very isolating approach to your career. You are really the only person. You're responsible for everything, and it's a joy, but it can feel like a burden some days, especially if you don't have someone just to turn to or bounce an idea off or say like, oh, you mean I should have put that in my proposal, because you maybe have had an experience before where that doesn't work out if you don't lay that out up front or those details.
So you guys are helping your members with stuff like that?
We sure try, and the way that we're able to do that is through content.
Okay.
Content and I would say other Jills.
Okay.
And that's been a nice area of opportunity for us, and we're always trying to carve out new space there too.
Okay.
So the Jills can offer expertise to other Jills, and we really want to encourage and cultivate that. So through our blog and the newsletters and featuring the other Jills that they offer help
Sure.
with.
In regards to Jills, helping Jills, essentially, if I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Is that paid essentially, or is that just, hey, call me up, I'll help you out because you're a Jill kind of thing? And there's more of a community or neighborly community.
That's certainly what we're trying to grow, and that's the culture that we want to create.
Gotcha.
And so for us, a lot of that is developed by Megan and I modeling that for our Jill's members initially, and then sort of helping them see how they can easily carry it forward.
Okay.
We've had some informal events where Jill's get together, face to face. But that only really works for those who are here in the Madison area, and if we're doing that. But already we actually have a national Jills, so it doesn't, this idea of just coming together in physical spaces is wonderful, but as we grow and scale, we really want to be able to make sure that we're creating content and access for all of our Jills in all ways. And so things like chat rooms and shared content, but we always encourage Jills, even when they sign up, like look through the directory. Who would you like to meet? Who can you give a call? Who can you ask a question to? How can you just get to know more people? Because maybe they're doing similar work and you can share ideas, or maybe it's synergistic. And we are also seeing Jills hiring Jills, which is another really wonderful.
As consultants.
Yes, because sometimes it makes sense. We always say you can team up to scale up, right? So you can bid on bigger projects if you're the web designer, but you also now know a Jill who can write content, and you have another Jill who is a photographer, and then you can come together and bid on projects together. And so you're creating these sort of really flexible teams that are all project based, and you have your directory and your go-to place to find it. So it's not just about outside, if you will, organizations looking inside and hiring Jills, but Jills also finding one another so that they can provide more robust services.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I love that whole dynamic, and we do see it happening on our scale. To me, I feel like that's the key for a consultant or a freelancer to actually go from just having some jobs or some projects to actually make it a sustainable, growing income base. That you can represent yourself like another small business or another small agency and say, yeah, we have a team.
Sure.
And we can do that project. You
Sure.
know, we can get that $250,000 bid.
Sure.
We've got trusted talent. We rely on each other, and we're very agile. We're flexible, and we're also probably more cost efficient than that other agency.
Totally fair.
So that team up to scale up is really, I think it really is the key. And as Corinne said, as much as we can encourage that communication and that cross collaboration, I feel like that's just a win for everybody.
Sure. That's interesting. So I want to ask you guys a little bit of a challenging question and then get into how you guys started and the timeline and all that jazz, because that's fun as well.
Sure.
But one of the challenges that I see you guys having, you tell me if I'm wrong here, is because you're the Jills of all trades, that you're female exclusive. Is that right?
We're not exclusive,
Okay.
but we are female forward.
Okay, so that's fair.
Yeah.
So then how do you, that's great. I can see how you're female forward, but every once in a while there's going to be some men that say like, hey, you got a great fast moving train. I want to jump on there.
Sure.
Do you ever find or believe that you'll be at a point where it's going to end up being 50-50 men and women, or even 30-70 if I can figure out my fractions
Yeah.
on the fly, or to a point where you're like, you know what, we got too many guys here, we're losing our focus kind of thing, or perceived focus?
In the short term, and I say short term, you know, boy, even if I say like 5 to 7 year run, I would say no.
Okay.
Because again, globally, it's definitely at a point of inflection where women are wanting to congregate together. They're wanting to energize off of each other, and they're wanting to support each other. And so these businesses, we're one of them.
Sure.
There's other businesses that are coming out of this new white space. Part of that concentration is also part of the business model.
Okay.
So I can't see that happening just because this is such a new pulse, I would
Gotcha.
say.
Okay.
But from the get-go, we wanted to have the focus of women because if you just look at it from a market standpoint, it was missing.
Fair. Totally fair.
If you look at it from a product and then a customer being served within the product, you're like, well, that's missing. It's an easy space for us to go after. And then when you also layer upon the collaboration and this cross-pollination that Corinne was talking about, statistically, that is more found in women behavior versus men.
Okay.
Women are more relationship-driven. There is more of that camaraderie aspect, more of the supporter, more that kind of nurturing quality, which lends itself to this type of work where you're collective based and you're working cross-functionally, and you're also working on a lot of things at the same time, multitasking. So all of those are grounded in statistics, so there's different layers. At the same time, we're never exclusive. We weren't at the beginning, and we're not now. And we do have, as we said, Jack or whatever. But
every once in a while, it's like Duck Goose, right?
Sure, yeah. Because it's not about excluding anybody; it's about spotlighting those who have been in the shadows.
Sure.
Where the spotlight. It should be big enough and the stage should be large enough, and yet there's many groups that have been in the shadows. So we're shifting the spotlight to those that have been, kind of left out, and they need to catch up.
Sure, that's fair.
Yep.
So let's shift into how you guys got started. You were consulting, or I guess you, Corinne, were consulting longer. At what point did you guys say, you know what, let's start a business?
What was the first? Maybe was it the accelerator program? What? Yeah, I wonder.
I feel like it might have been. So we'd had, we talked about our first sort of meeting with our, community. And then that just led to casual conversations really between Megan and I. Like,
a lot of whiteboard sessions.
A lot of whiteboard sessions, yeah. And that wasn't, I don't know in those really early days if we were like, we're going to get together and we're going to start a business. I don't know that that's where our headspace initially was, but I do think it was more like, hey, I think there's something here. I think that there's a need. What role could we possibly play in it?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so those are more of our early conversations. And then we did actually learn about a program through WARF,
Okay.
which is the Upstart program, which
Sure.
is really geared towards helping people in very early stage thinking around like businesses and what it takes to grow a business. And so we found that I can't exactly even remember how we knew about that.
I wonder if did our friend Annie maybe send us that?
I think it's possible.
I think someone helped
Yeah,
us
sure.
to
All right.
to point the way to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was following the breadcrumbs a little bit there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we had, we got the application and we were like, let's fill out the application. And of course, just in filling out the application, it forced us to sort of solidify some ideas just in like, 'cause
sure.
what are we going to say here? And do we have a name? Do we have to have a name? Can we go to this if we don't even have a
Right.
name?
Sure. So kind of how
which-
real do you want this to be?
Yeah.
Yes. And so the wonderful thing about the Upstart program is that it's okay wherever you are, really, in terms of your development, which was really welcoming for us. And so we did join. We were given, I guess it's an acceptance.
Yeah.
And so we joined this community. They run it in different cohorts. And so we attended our beautiful Wednesday night evenings. They give you a meal and everything.
Oh, wow.
It
Nice.
was
Yeah.
just exceptional. And for two busy working moms, it was such a treat, actually, to be given time and place and some dinner and free parking.
So organized.
So
Yeah.
organized to go and hear from a variety of speakers, but more importantly, to like share some of our ideas with other people who are
Sure.
in similar places. And, so to learn from experts, share ideas, and then also just to carve out time for us to sort of hash out ideas and play around with it. We use Business Model Canvas to sort of play with our ideas and,
Sure.
you know, kept doing that wonderful thing where you keep morphing and what if. And we really did take on the idea of customer development really, really seriously. And
Sure.
we made our list and we got on that telephone and we called people and asked them if they would talk to us about our ideas and answer our questions. And they did. I mean, that was the most wonderful part for us. I mean, that took several months of our time, I think, where
Yeah.
we did that.
I think we probably ended up meeting with, at least 150 people.
Oh, wow.
That were
Other business owners or?
potentially, we had client segment, so potential
Okay.
client segment, and then we also had potential member segment, and we just kind of worked through a list and made our rounds at the coffee shops or call or email or wherever they were, without wanting to assume what we thought the
Sure.
problem was and what the product should be.
Sure.
That really helped to define us. And then at the end of that pipeline of the Upstart program is, again, fabulous resources, great support, really good structure, keeps you on your toes of kind of navigating through the next step, the next step.
And accountable.
You're held accountable to get to the end, so that was great.
Held accountable by who?
Well, the program, because they say, okay, I think, what is it, maybe 10 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. And they say, okay, well, week 3, we're working on your customer segment. And week 4, we're going to work on your marketing.
Sure.
Week 5 and so on and so on. We're going to work on your tax and your legal entity and whatever else. So they do sort of force you through the path versus prior to that, we could have possibly been spitting on whiteboards for like another 2
Because we
years.
actually really like that. I mean, that's like happy
Oh, I'm
time
a
for
whiteboard
us.
guy.
do.
I'm all about the whiteboard.
and
Don't
my
get me
color
wrong.
coding, and I really do.
Yes.
Yeah, if we had a whiteboard in this room, I swear to God, we could solve any problem out
Do
there.
you have a whiteboard?
We barely have enough room for chairs in here. So.
But so I think it does hold you accountable to get to the next step, at least for where you are that day. And it's fluid. Startup is fluid, which is why it's awesome.
Sure.
So that probably was then we said, oh, we do have a business here. We're gonna make this real, because that program also connects you with the Law and Entrepreneurship
Sure.
Clinic, which is another incredible resource that Madison offers for that. And you have to, again, pitch yourself, and you have to meet certain requirements, but then they'll take you as a client,
Sure.
and then you can work through your partner agreements and your terms of agreement with your members and trademark, all
Sure.
that stuff.
All right.
So I think by the end of that timeline, we were real.
Yes, we were real.
We
and
were
we
real.
were real because we had to sit down in front of people and tell them what we were doing.
Sure.
I mean, it was, and that's part of that accountability. I think that was really important because if we wanted their help and we wanted to access their resources, even if it was a version 2 of an iteration or version 3, we still had to be able to speak about it and why we wanted to do it and who we thought it was serving and what problems we were solving. And just in dealing in that language, we were formulating business and business ideas, right?
Sure.
Right from the very beginning.
And kept validating
Yes.
validating the hunches too. You're like, yeah, no, I think what's cool about those early startup phases, however long it is, a lot of it tells you what you are, but I think more so it tells you what you're not. I think that was a huge learning, because then a couple of phases that came after that, then when you start to get more solidified, and then we had pitched ourselves and got into an accelerator program, and at the end of that, the prize is a grant, so you get some seed funding, and that's awesome.
This is beyond the WARF thing?
Yes.
Yeah, that was phase 2. So after we finished the WARF Upstart program,
Sure.
and that was probably maybe we were spring cohort, I think.
We're talking 2017?
2016,
2016,
I think,
okay.
maybe. Yeah, 2016.
Okay.
Then coming into the fall, we had pitched ourselves into another accelerator that is also WARF funded. Is that true?
I believe so. The MadWorks Accelerator.
Yeah,
Okay, sure.
MadWorks Accelerator,
Sure.
and I believe that they're also funded by WARF. Another great ecosystem that is helping businesses to get started.
Sure.
And so we were one group of maybe, I'll say 35, 40 teams that pitched for that cohort. And then they chose 6, I think. So we're one of 6. We
Okay.
got ourselves in there.
Nice.
And it was something that we were aware of even in the pitch, the early pitch, that it was definitely more men for sure.
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of it was tech and apps and those
Sure.
kind of digital projects.
Look at my little software kind of thing.
And that does happen, that's
Sure.
a typical gender swing of late.
Totally.
Hopefully that's changing forward,
Yeah.
but it was definitely mainly men. And it was something that I had observed while we were waiting for our pitch turn.
Sure.
Was the few women that were there, not all of them actually stood up and presented for themselves. Some of them had a buddy or a partner, or
Like they were shy, or what was?
I don't know specifically what the rationale was, but
Or if you had to guess?
if I had a guess, I would say they were nervous
Okay.
and thought that person could do it better.
Sure.
Or
Now-
would represent better perhaps in
Would
that audience.
Sure.
It was just a majority male. There's
Okay.
no question about it. I think, as I recall, there were 6 women in the room and we were 2 of
We
them.
were 2 of the 6.
6
And
out of how many?
I'd say about 40.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yes.
okay. Tiny
And-
percentage.
Yes.
So
and
not
then,
even close.
No,
Right.
and we were the only all-female team. So
True.
the other women who were there were part of a partnership, and
Okay.
at least one other person in their partnership was male. And when we went to do our pitches, we were actually the only women who spoke.
Yeah. And so they're just observations, right? I mean, you're like, well, is it right? Is it wrong? It's just it is what it is.
Sure.
But certainly, if there's products that are more women driven, then likely the people who are going to serve that audience is probably women. So when you
Fair
asked
bet.
your question before, like, hey, do you ever see yourselves being 50-50? And that's a reason why I get back to that question, is like, probably not, because the people who need to be served are women. And until, and maybe it will be soon, that'd be awesome. But until everything does feel more 50-50,
Sure.
then no, we got stuff to do.
Sure. That's fair.
We got there's work to be done here, and our mission is squarely on creating more of that equity
Sure.
in audience and in exposure and in opportunity and in pay.
Okay.
All of it.
Sure. So in that, did you guys win the grant?
Well,
You win the grant by getting accepted into the cohort. So
Oh, nice.
everybody in the cohort,
Yep.
providing you finish it and
Sure.
you do the work associated with it at the end,
Which
then
that
you
alone
get
is
your
a
grant.
big thing. Sure.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
was a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was an opportunity, now if I reflect on that, where the experience was, again, a lot of good resources. We met phenomenal people. One of our Jill members, who's a Jack, one of our Jack members, is is on our membership, and we met him through that cohort. So
Sure.
a lot of great exposure.
Yeah.
But what we learned, Corinne and I, was also another good validation of who we are versus who we aren't.
Okay.
Because naturally there's questions that would come forward and say, well, you know, if you look at it just, you know, basic marketing, you're
Sure.
leaving out 50% of your audience.
Okay.
You know, why are you cutting out 50% of your customers? You know, you're just going after women. Why wouldn't you have men and women, right? And so I think for a you know, part of the discovery was like, well, let's go down that path and let's play that out.
Sure.
And so we did. You know, Corinne and I would play that out. But intuitively, it didn't make sense. Also, statistically, it didn't make sense.
Right.
Because we knew what the opportunity was, and it was women who were needing it. Plus, again, on that global macro scale, it was just starting to really buzz on women.
Sure.
So you're like, well, exposure-wise, that makes more sense too.
Yeah.
Right.
And I had come from, you know, past 14 years at my last big corporate assignment, where that audience was just girls.
Sure.
And so I was like, no, I know how to do that, right? Like, no, you get half of the gender, sure, but you might get like 80% saturation
Sure.
of that one gender because you're so focused and you're serving that group so well. So we did kind of come full circle back around where we were, and that in itself was our tailwind.
It really was.
It really was. Like it you know, kind of that circling and swirling was the best thing that ever happened to us.
It was, yeah. And that the accelerator was great for that purpose of people really pushing on your idea, you know? And I remember there were times when I was just like, they're just pushing so hard, you know,
Stop
on
asking
this. Yeah.
questions.
You know, Megan is much bolder than I. She was like, we're good. But I definitely had moments where I was like, oh my gosh, like this is hard, you know, and I don't know. Why are we doing this all of a sudden, you know?
That's a great point, right? Because I've been coached by other coaches and even just other people that you're talking to, and they're asking questions because they don't understand.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's not because they have intent of hurting you or some ill intent. It's just they're just challenging you a little bit. And I was talking with this woman, she just for coffee. We were meeting for a completely different reason, and she was asking me questions, and I was thinking, oh, no one's ever asked me that before, and I should have an answer. That's a simple question. It could have been just as easily as her asking me what my favorite color was, and I was just racking my brain like, what is my favorite color? How do I not know what my favorite color is?
Right? Yeah.
And it was awesome that she was asking that. And then the only thing I could think was, as a business coach, I went, oh my gosh, do my clients feel like this? Am I just grilling them to the point they're in tears? I gotta dial that back.
Yeah, it's true what you say. I mean, the challenge is good, and you want people to ask questions from all different aspects. I mean, yeah, the experience can be tough at the time, but it's all worthwhile. It is.
Yeah.
So that
it helped us get so clear and understand why we were doing what we were doing. We sort of intuitively had a feeling around it, and then we had each other who were feeling the same, right? So that was good momentum for us. And so to have people kind of press on it, it really helped us clarify. I mean, because we were like, okay, let's try something else on. Let's try this on. Let's try that on. And in doing that and in that process, by the time we got to the final week and we had to stand up and do our final pitch, and they had us pitching every single week through our iterations.
Every single week?
They did.
Oh,
yes.
interesting.
Oh, yes. It was my favorite
I teach
part.
a class, and they would go crazy if I did that. It's funny. A business planning class.
Yeah. It was, right, Megan? I feel
Yeah.
like every week we had to do some version of our pitching.
That's a good idea. I like that.
It was good.
Pitch polish, I think, was the goal.
Pitch polish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But by the time we got to that final time, I felt confident. We came across really confidently. We knew why we were saying what we were saying. People asked us questions. We knew how to answer them. We weren't unsure. And we then also had, if you will, our own version of data to like tell them why. Well, we talked to 100 people. This is what we learned. I hear what you're saying, but that wasn't validated by our work, you know? So it was good for us to get, and I mean, that's its whole purpose, right? It's like 10 weeks to get you
Right.
you know, to those places where you can really feel firm. And we actually by then had a name too, which was one of the
Yeah.
challenges for us throughout it.
We had a name, and we had our first website prototype.
We did.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So that was the huge milestone deliverable
It was.
after that accelerator.
Then it really looks real.
Then it's really real. Yeah, we were real on paper coming out of the WARF first program, coming out of the WARF second program, the accelerator. We were real
Yeah.
for real.
Sure. I can remember when I wrote
We had
my
a beta
first-
group.
We had a beta.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Oh,
had a beta
nice.
group. We had pilot membership. We had
Yeah.
a prototype. We were MVP.
Yep.
You
All
know,
right.
we were MVP, and we had customers. We had paying customers.
Paying customers at this
We
point.
did.
We did. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was like, all right. And then now we can, everything is always hindsight, which is beautiful, right? But any times that we're able to interject with our Jill members or any of the startup community that we interact with who's asking, we'll say, boy, that is really the best thing you can get under your belt is you got to get your MVP, you know, minimal viable products. So whatever it is, whatever it looks like for you, as scratchy as it is, doesn't matter. But you got to get something real, because once you do, then there's like, you know, then there's fire on your wheels, right? You just
Yep.
you start really rolling from there.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then you have, you know, you just got you have momentum, and you have people to help market what you have, and they can spread the word, and it's all good from there. But getting to that point for us wasn't by any means overnight,
No.
and it was not easy, by any means.
So what
No.
were some of the biggest challenges?
Well, the biggest challenge, I would say, in hindsight, was the gender focus
Okay.
and being more women forward, because there was external inputs that we so valued and so respected. They were really pushing against that.
Really?
Yes,
for
very
sure.
strongly.
Very strongly.
But then you're just another marketing company, right?
And there's competition. I mean, there's phenomenal players that have these freelance directories, you know, massive global
right.
global
There-
machines.
That's
There's
already
Upwork
out there.
and Guru, right? And so we wanted to take what was working, of course, and
Sure.
we did a huge competitive analysis. So we understood who the players were. So
Mm-hmm.
we're like, we know what they're doing, but we also know what they're missing. So that probably was the hardest part, was to keep validating back the research that we knew
Yeah.
and the macro trends that we knew,
Sure.
and then also our also gut, you know, our good gut instinct.
Yeah, I would not have guessed that. That's crazy. Interesting. Okay.
We also went through, there was some pressing against actually our business model. So a lot of freelance marketplaces are transaction based.
Okay. Sure.
And so, you know, it's free to join, and but then they're sort of brokering the deals, you know,
Sure.
and then they take a percentage
Sure.
of it. And I mean, we definitely looked at that. We explored that, and what does that mean? And but our research and our customer development really was saying that isn't what we want, that it was driving the price down for work in general, that often it was about the lowest bidder. And so that was really changing the game as a freelancer. And
the people that you'd be attracting then are probably people that can't. They're a lower
Well-
business. I don't even know how to explain it. Maybe people that are just starting out, not so experienced, because people that are experienced
Well,
can
that
charge a premium,
Yep,
so they
I
wouldn't
think
need something like
I think that is absolutely a component. The number one thing why that didn't rest with us well was that it was completely at odds from where we started.
yes,
The problem that we were solving, and we still are laser focused to solve, is women consultants, solo professional solopreneurs need more exposure.
Sure.
Right? That's where we
Yes.
started, and that they're lacking self promotion. They need more promotion.
Sure.
So if we have a model that all of a sudden puts a curtain in front of them, and then on the system is like, you know, trying to match you secretly behind
Sure.
the curtain, then that talent is back in the shadows, not in the spotlight.
That's fair.
And the talent gets no credit until basically then they're competing against 3 or 4 other, you know,
Sure.
whatever they are, if they're graphic designers or social media marketers, whatever they are. So that fundamentally,
commoditizing.
yeah, it was
Yes.
completely at odds. So we
Yep.
said, okay, we're gonna flip that model on its ear intentionally and purposefully, not naively, but purposely, and say that if we're here to serve the women solos, then we're going to put you forward.
Sure.
And we're purposely not going to get in your way to get some work.
Sure.
We don't want to be your middleman, and the platform doesn't need to be your middleman. And
Right.
we also don't be taking money out of your pocket
No.
either. So if you're able to negotiate a good bid and, you get
And
whatever.
it's work you want. It
Yeah.
makes sense to
Right.
you.
You set the terms, right?
Have at her.
And
Okay.
and have at it. And then likewise for the client, we don't want to put any friction between the client and the talent. So they don't need to log in, they don't need to join, they don't need to pay a fee. You go to our website, which is thejillsofalltrades.com,
Yeah.
and you can view everyone in the directory, and there's their email there, there's the cell phone there if they want, and you just call them and say, hey, I got this project and I need a bid on a new
Sure.
website, and you take it from there. The gig economy is set up on the complete and close intersections of the consumer with the demand. There's no middleman. That's the whole point, right? You don't need a middleman.
So this notion of having like a transactional piece was exactly that. It was inserting something that was in opposition to everything that we believe we
With
wanted
the
to
only
do.
benefit essentially being for you guys from a profitability point
Of
view.
course, absolutely. And yeah, you could argue that of course that's a great benefit, but it doesn't serve the customers in any
But
way.
at the demise of what you're trying to
Yep.
achieve, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it doesn't make sense.
What our model is based on is the membership. And so if you believe as a solopreneur that you can use some extra marketing and extra amplifying of your business, then great. Then we're a tool for you, and you can pay. It's an annual membership, but you can pay month by month, or you can
Sure.
just pay once at a time,
Sure.
whatever works for you. And then you get that going, and then we also strongly recommend that you have other things going too. Marketing is the ripples of many, many, many
Sure.
stones
Yep.
Right.
out
Not
in
just
that in a
one
lot
single.
of ponds too, right? So yeah, put your shingle up in as many places you can, and hopefully all arrows are going to point back to your business.
Sure.
And you get more work, and it's all good. It's a win-win.
Nice. So I looked at some of the I guess members, or what would you call them?
Yeah,
Call
Jills.
them Jills.
The Jills. Okay. So I looked at some of their profiles, and I can see that you must ask them quite a few questions in regards to personality and their acumen in their business. And it's more than just what do you do and how much does it cost.
That's right.
It gets pretty deep as far as some of the answers that you had there.
Yeah, and same thing. I mean, we offer the options, and it's always up to the person if they take it or not. So the profile is really robust, and it does get a lot of questions because, again, we're trying to help them stand out, not for just what they do, but who they are, and more importantly, why they do what they do.
Sure.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah, that was a huge thing. It
Yeah.
was interesting
Yes.
because I landed on, I don't know, maybe a dozen or maybe a little bit more. And the ones that did not have the full, I guess, small autobiography.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that stood out. Like, why didn't you answer these questions?
Oh, interesting. Right. Yeah.
Because you're so used to expecting the small novel.
Right.
with
That's
each
good to
one.
know.
That is
And
good
I
to
say
know.
that not in a bad way.
No,
Sure.
no,
And
no,
this
absolutely.
is a ton of information that your personal information and business information that you wouldn't get from a business card or even most people's About Us page.
True, that is
On the
true,
website.
and you don't get it on a LinkedIn really because again that's more resume
Right.
based, more position based, not personality based. Yeah, but especially if you're a solopreneur, you are your branding. I mean, it's
Oh,
it's
definitely.
not rocket science,
Nope.
right? You are your business A to Z. So the more you can bring forward about the types of work that you do and the types of projects that you're trying to attract, types of customers that you can really help. I mean, that's all going to put you in the right space where you're gonna be busier. So that's good to know because we do try to encourage people.
We
to,
really do.
to make it as full as they can. But and there's the other spin too where some of the Jills will say, "Well, I'm not ready."
Yes.
Right? I'm not ready. I'm like, well,
Not ready for...
not ready.
Kind of put it all out there yet.
I don't have, I'm not ready. I don't have my business name yet, or I don't have my
Oh,
headshot
sure.
yet, or
Okay.
I don't have the headshot that I love yet,
Sure.
or what you name it, right? And we try to counter that to say, hey, you're ready for today. Tomorrow's tomorrow. Next month is next month. But you're ready for today. So you got what you got. Put it out there.
Yep.
Put it out there.
Perfect is
we
good
hope
enough
that-
first enemy, right?
Yeah, perfect is, doesn't win over progress, right? So
Right.
Yeah, that goes back, I think, to what we were saying a few minutes ago about the MVP, right? Like you have to, once you get something out there, then you can keep working on it. It's that blank piece of paper that's the problem. And if you're waiting in your business for it all to be perfect, you won't ever take those steps, because that will never happen. You don't want it to happen. You always want it to be growing and evolving, and you're always thinking about it. So I feel like the profile that we ask the Jills to fill out in many ways is for them to be able to also take that step, because many of them are in different stages. Some of them have had businesses for many years, and they do have beautiful marketing collateral, and they have gorgeous websites, and they're in that kind of a space. And so that they've already really gone through that branding and putting themselves out there. But some Jills are coming to it very new to the space, and again, we want them to feel like, then this is your way to jump in. We are going to ask you these questions, put that stuff forward, and you are creating your brand, and you are putting yourself out there for who you are. It also creates this wonderful atmosphere, I feel like, of collaboration among the Jills, as opposed to competition. That's one of our really big pieces. Like, we're about being collaborative, not about competing with one another. And so the profile, I think, really helps to do that, because maybe there are 3 graphic designers in there, but in reading their profiles, you will recognize really quickly that they bring
personality difference.
yes, and they bring
Right.
different things to the table, and that's why they're solopreneurs, and that is what makes them unique and allows us to be collaborative and not feel as though we're competing with one another inside the platform.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, just reading the few that I did, I was skimming mostly, but you could tell character differences night and day between quite a few of them, which I imagine was the whole point.
it's the whole point. Yeah, that was one of I think that was an early decision point too of the business model of, well, once you have your membership, what are you gonna do if there's 3 graphic designers in there? Are you gonna limit it just to like having one graphic designer and one brand strategist and one lawyer, right?
Well, I'd get clunky.
And we said, well, no. I mean, the power in numbers. I mean, of course, and that's a fundamental marketing dynamic as well. So yeah, it's why there's however many stores keep coming to the nice lifestyle malls, not just one. It's like more the merrier. It brings more together.
Sure.
So if you've got more clients coming to the platform, everyone gets lifted by that. They may not be coming for a graphic design project that time. They may be coming for a healthcare specialist, but they're going to see you're there, and then the next time maybe they're going to hire you for the graphic design project the next time.
I'm always just puzzled when you get questions like that. Like, are you only going to have one graphic designer? Because I think does any clothing store only have one shirt?
Right.
Like, this is your shirt. That's your option. We don't even have different sizes. That's it. Good luck.
You're like, and it doesn't fit you. And here it's $250.
Yeah, it's just, of course we have.
Thanks. Don't come again.
Oh my goodness gracious! To think that every graphic designer or everyone that does X job is the same.
Yeah. So
blows my mind.
The idea of that collaboration wins over competition, that is a dynamic, and it's not just it's a namaste kind of thing. It's just a fundamental business proposition, right?
Sure.
The more the merrier, power numbers, and the better, cooler people that come in there, you're all gonna look great.
Yes.
Right? I mean, we're rubbing shoulders together with these top-notch talents. Tides high, all boats float.
Sure, right.
And that's true, and it is momentum building, but it also is business model building as well.
So the more members you get, the more traffic you'll get. And
Of
the
course.
more traffic you get, the more members you'll get. And
Yep, and it's
become a resource.
self-feeding growth and self-feeding marketing, and we've seen
And they're
that.
all helping each other by joining.
Sure.
Sure.
As the collective grows in diversity and in number, all are benefiting from that. And we've seen that already from our beta pilot of a dozen.
Yes.
And now we have about 50, and different cities and different skills. And it's cool, too, like you were talking about the profiles. And that is people are coming to it in different stages. So like we say, well, some people say we're just not ready. And that's another interesting dynamic that we got to understand more working with our customers.
Sure.
And through the customer development process, that if you're a solopreneur, you're there for a lot of different reasons. There's different subgroups.
Okay.
So part of the audience in that space is they are maybe expats from the corporate world. That was me for a period of time. And so for whatever reason, they're exiting out of kind of the big structures, and they like the creativity, or they like the freedom or flexibility of kind of doing their own thing. Then there's also a big subset that are the caregivers.
Sure.
So they're new parents caring for children, and they want that flexibility. They can't sort of manage both work-life balance with brick and mortar businesses, and so they're kind of doing that. Or they might be actually caring for their elderly parents too. Then there's the baby boomers, and they're ready to kind of slow down their careers, but they don't want to stop. So they say, well, I'll just kind of set up my shop for a little while, and I'll be able to still tap into my work and feed that for another 5-10 years.
Sure.
Then there's another segment that's the younger millennials and the generation actually coming behind the millennials, where that's just kind of what they know. They've got 4 or 5 projects at a time. They're not going to have a gold watch 30-year pension kind of a job anymore.
I don't even know if that's possible.
It's not possible. It doesn't exist anyway. And so they're just kind of going into it that they're going to work remotely. They're going to be flexible. They're agile in their work. They're agile in their locations. And so they're kind of solos. So there's all these subsets within this ecosystem, and we get to see it even within our membership of 50 or so. We see all those slices.
Sure.
And that is a representation of what's happening on that larger worldwide scale of this global gig economy.
Sure.
It's pretty cool.
So now tell me, in the last couple of years, what have you guys seen in regards to growth with your business, or just changes to your business?
That's a good question. I think we've become more and more focused in terms of the best kind of marketing to do, things like how to build those profiles and to really help Jills build the best profiles that they can for themselves.
Sure.
We've grown in our content that we put out. We now have our content is now extended that our Jills are contributing to creating the content getting that out. So those have all been really great. And then of course we really started we were very geographical in that it made sense. Like our beta group was primarily, from the Madison area because that's where we are based.
Sure.
But just as we had hoped, we're growing our geography. We still tend to be, the majority of our Jills are still more regional, but we do have little upspringings in, we have Seattle, Boston, Austin, Florida, New York, and so we're also growing in terms of our partnerships with other female forward businesses across the nation. And so there's wonderful reciprocity happening for us there, where we're finding synergies with other organizations who also have a similar mission, but how they're executing on that mission is different and lies nice as a side by with us. And so we as the Jills co-founders are growing in those partnerships to help our Jills members and to just continue to grow our platform and our exposure for them.
Okay. So
that is true. It is cool to think about. Yeah, we have definitely grown quite a bit. Some things we've shrunk.
Shrunk. Events. We shrunk events.
We shrunk events. Yeah.
Tell me why.
Well, originally we thought that's a key critical component. I mean, for sure, we want people to have face-to-face meetings. Everything is kind of going more digital, but personal connections are really what builds professional and sustainable relationships. So we were really passionate about that. But what we found in, I guess a couple things of why is our membership was growing nationally, and so we couldn't serve the national customers with local events, certainly not in a feasible way.
Right.
But even when we did have our local events, and we had quite a few, we were realizing that for good or for bad, there's a lot of things happening in Madison. There's a lot of meetups. There's the co-working events. There's the different organizations. There's startup events. Endless. I mean, if you really want to put yourself out there, Madison rolls out the red carpet, and there's tons of ways to do it.
Absolutely.
Which is fantastic. But what we realized was like, well, then again, our meetups or our events are competing with a lot of things on the same calendar.
Yep.
And we're actually dividing the group versus broadening the group.
Sure.
And we're like, well, that's completely at odds too with what we're trying to do. We want, we're the opposite of fragmentation, right? We're
Sure.
all about aggregation. And yet all these events are happening in silos.
Sure.
Right.
Individually, and the audience just kept spinning maybe the date and the restaurant or
Sure.
something.
Right.
Or the venue.
Sure.
So we're like, that doesn't make sense. So what we did instead was we added a calendar, and we definitely have some good thoughts about how to maximize that
Okay.
downstream.
Sure.
But we've got a calendar that points the Jill members to what's going on
Sure.
in all your cities.
Sure.
And we're going to really, put some more gas on that. So encouraging you to get out, encouraging you to increase your network and meet people and get the face-to-face and build your collaboration and your connections. But we don't need to do that.
No, we don't.
That wheel's already been made.
It
So-
really has. It really has.
Yeah.
So tell me, in 60 seconds, where do you see the Jills of all trades going in the next 3 to 5 years?
Internationally, for sure.
Okay.
And that is part of the gig economy. There's no lines, there's no borders. You can work digitally, you can work remotely. And so why not find your talent wherever it best sits? We've got some partners that are coming that actually make that happen, that you can work remotely.
Nice.
And change city to city once a month kind of thing. So I would say we're global. I would say we are larger. For
Nice.
sure. And we are still women forward. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's it.
Cool.
That's our focus.
Cool.
Building the membership and building our partnerships.
Sure. So one piece of advice that you would give, or I guess 2 pieces of advice, one from each of you, really quick, what would you tell someone that was considering starting their own business?
Start. Just start. I mean, that
Start.
would be it. Start. It's not going to be perfect. You've got tons of learning to do. There's great resources, but just start. Just say, actually practice saying it. I'm going to start a business, or I have a business.
Oh, nice.
I think that is, that's the beginning of making it real and helping you move forward.
Sure. That's awesome.
And I'll book in Corinne's start, and I'll add another S word, which is surrender. Never surrender.
Never surrender. All right.
You just keep going. And if you are truly passionate about why you're starting a business, other than the money, if you really have a passion and a mission, just never surrender. Just keep going. There's definitely days where you will feel like, oh, come on, like there's people against us, right? But you just keep going. So stamina.
Sure.
Stamina wins.
That's
wins.
awesome.
Stamina wins over skill.
Definitely.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming on the show. This has been a blast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you,
It's been a
James.
blast for us too.
Yeah.
So it's the jillsofalltrades.com.
That's right.
right.
All right,
That's
nice. Check it out. This has been Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggles, stories, and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. Coming to you from the Sun Prairie Community Studios, underwritten by Bank of Sun Prairie. My name is James Kateman, business coach at Draw In Customers Business Coaching, co-owner of Calls on Call, shared receptionist services, and author of the Bold Business book, available on Amazon. We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners, and our wonderful guests, Megan Boswell and Corinne Neal from the Jills of All Trades. Thank you, guys. This has been a blast. Find us airing on 103.5 Wednesdays at 1 p.m., Sundays at 2 p.m., as well as at sunprairiemediacenter.com. Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night at the podcast link on drawincustomers.com. Thank you for listening. We will see you next week. I want you to stay awesome, and if you do nothing else, enjoy your business.